Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the screening of our Apples and Trees Shorts program. I'm so excited to be here with some members of the film teams that you just watched, and I would love to have them introduce themselves to you.
Hi, I'm Van Nguyen, the writer-director of Thanksgiving.
Hi, I'm Elyse Dinh. I played Ma in Thanksgiving.
Hi, I'm M. Weinstein. I'm the writer-director of In France, Michelle is a Man's Name.
Hi, I'm Justice Jamal Jones. I was the writer and director of How to Raise a Black Boy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Slava, and I'm the writer and director of Eggshells.
Thanks, everyone, so much for presenting these films at Dandy's Heels and for gathering today to have this conversation. And wow, excellent Zoom choreography, really nailing it already. And the first thing I want to know from you all is, of course, you're organized in the Apples and Trees program for a reason. So I'd love to hear from each of you about what drew you towards family as something you wanted to organize your films around.
I guess I'll go first. I just wanted to cover, a Vietnamese American family in a contemporary setting, that we so rarely ever get to see, and a story like this, and following a mother's perspective to her son coming out to them.
And Elyse, what drew you to the project? What made you want to come on board and support Van's vision?
I loved Van's authenticity and specificity. I've been doing this a long time, and a lot of times when I read scripts for Asian or Vietnamese specific characters that were not written by Viets, they can fall into stereotypical details or tropes. But when I read this, there was so much truth in there that I identified with her right away. And not only could I sense the truth right away, I could hear the character. And that's when I know it's good writing. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like these lines, I can already hear these characters speaking. They're already alive on the page, and that's when you get that kind of tingly feeling, go, this is truth. And I want to be a part of that.
So lovely. Thank you.
I think for me, I wanted to look at gender, and especially how gender is passed down from our parents, and how so much of what we think about gender has come from our parents inadvertently. So I wanted to tell this sort of father-son story to talk about both of their genders and sort of how one influences the other and sort of vice versa. So it being a family story was sort of essential for that conversation.
Yeah, the lineage for sure.
Yeah, and with How to Raise a Black Boy, it's, I guess, kind of similar. I was thinking a lot about gender and sexuality, but more specifically within Blackness and Black boyhood. Kind of just doing a reflection on how I've become I was once a gay person and now I identify as a non-binary person, and kind of how those things transition, and kind of how I guess I the lineage of time, and kind of how I guess even queerness can be sort of a family lineage as well.
Absolutely.
For Eggshells, I think it's important to say that in Bulgaria, queer cinema is very young. There only have been very few short films that have been talking about this theme. And as this is a very early stage, we're still talking about coming out, unfortunately, and dealing with family and coming out to your family and dealing with family. And this is an important topic for us right now. A lot for me and for my friends, this is where we are at now, and I wanted to talk about that, and to set this story at a very family, traditional holiday was important for me because it brings everything that's hidden into the surface.
It sure does. And of course, you're not alone with the Thanksgiving team in the room, how some of these things come together. Yeah, thank you. And I think what you each also bring up is that family, of course, especially in these queer contexts, is sort of complicated. So if you want to give me some sort of update on what you thought were like the highs and lows, or the struggles and the triumph of going into each of these stories, what were the challenges, the tough bits of addressing this stuff, and also were there high notes, some things that you took away that were positive about exploring this particular topic?
Yeah, I just wanted to explore, like, still within the Asian community, there still can be, or with any community, there can still be prejudice, whether it's, sexuality, racial, and all of that. So, I wanted to be able to hit on all of those notes, you know, while being in a Vietnamese American family set on a very, very American holiday. Um, so I think, I feel like, yeah, we were able to be able to cover all that, and be able to see, like, what it would be like if we just all just accept, reality.
A triumph, indeed. Yes.
It's triumph, yeah.
I wanted to mention something. Vietnamese parents can be strict, but what I really loved about Ma and the dad, and what Vân wrote, was that they got to be cute and flirty, and they're funny to me. There's like they're cooking, and you get to see the lighter moments. It's a serious film. It's not. I don't think it's meant to be a comedy, but I love the lighter notes in it. You get to see mom and dad being funny, and I just really like that, just to have that lightness, in the midst of this. It's a serious thing.
Well, that's the thing too, with especially with Vietnamese characters, in Hollywood, we are often portrayed, reflecting our refugee status, or, like, connected to the Vietnam War, and it's always so serious, and
Yes,
and it's just like, we're all not like that, especially, especially now. So, like, just like looking at the modern day, Vietnamese American family, and like, even the parents being immigrants, but, like, there is a lightheartedness to it, and just being able to reflect that, and reflect the truth in a Vietnamese, household. Yeah.
Totally. Highs and lows for sure. And oh my goodness, Ma charmed my socks off. An excellent character, an excellent character.
She's funny. Like, she's hilarious to me.
Really. Your highs and lows, your takeaways on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, I think one thing that's so hard when writing any family story is you have to leave so much unsaid, because frankly, there's just so much history that we often don't talk about. And especially, I did, like, in working on the film, like, spent a lot of time with my parents, and was like, wow, we really don't talk about a lot of what we're actually talking about. We talk about other things. And I think figuring out sort of how to really be subtle with this story was really, really complicated. And ended up being, like, a big challenge in the edit, was just like, how can we make this feel as natural as possible, and honestly, like, let there be silences, and let there be sort of stillness and awkwardness. But what was really awesome, and sort of a high of the process, was we did, I come from a theater background, and so I always, like, insist on having a rehearsal. So we did all of this, like, amazing work, kind of building, like, shared memories with the three actors, with this family, so that we felt like, obviously an actor can do that alone and imagine by themselves, but there's something kind of special about, like, creating a shared history together. So we did about, a couple hours of just talking about what the last time was like when they saw their son, and, like, what all of this history is. And, I worked with the woman who played the mom on, like, what was the memory of his first day of kindergarten, just, like, little things, so that we could imagine, so that the actors had, like, a lot to think about and work with, even though they were saying very little.
Yeah, no, you felt them bring an ambiguous history to the table, and it was well rendered. You felt that come through for sure. Justice?
I think for How to Raise a Black Boy, the, like, spark of the film was kind of a low.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of like a testament to like the film and kind of like the fairy tale aspect that comes out of it. But it was just this huge moment for me of I was just like extremely overwhelmed during like the Black Lives Matter movement. And I think I actually kind of fell into a little bit of like a depression. And there was like anxiety. And then also that on top of seeing like the treatment of like queer and trans people within the Black community, I was like, oh, there's just so many layers of like trauma. And so that was kind of like the base, but the most beautiful thing for me was being on set and being with the cast. And the cast had a lot of like really young like Black kids in it, and really like seeing their perspective on the world right now, and it really gave like a lot of hope. And it was really beautiful to create this like microcosm of like peace and freedom, and then kind of hopefully I think everyone was able to like take that with them. And so when things get like hard and tough, you can kind of remember that and remember like, oh, it's not that bad.
That's gorgeous. And yeah, I think, yeah, especially in a year like this, all these films are acts of resilience, and it's such a pleasure to be able to show them off to the world. Slava?
I think the cornerstone of my film was casting my father to act as himself. It was a very difficult decision, both for him and for me, because what you see in the film is where he stands in life about queerness, about gayness, about he's very conservative, but he still agreed to take part in it and to kind of help me make this film. And it, very interesting, recently there was this local premiere of the film in Sofia, and the premiere was kind of sabotaged by far-right nationalists who all came into the screening room, and they took half of the seats and they tried to bring down the screening. And my father saw the film the first time he saw the film was within this context. So I think he realized, what am I doing and why am I doing it and what's the context of this work. So it's really, this film is about him. And afterwards, I think he's more sensitive to the topic. Yes.
Oh my stars, talk about apples and trees. That is an incredible story. And again, so powerful to have these presented. That's amazing. That is just amazing. I'm going to ask just a couple questions to each film team. Vân, you kind of brought it up, but Slava, I want to hear from you too. How did you select the holidays that you did? Easter and Thanksgiving, and why? What did it do for you?
I love Thanksgiving, and in my Thanksgiving household, like my mom is the one who cooks. Like we cook like all the traditional dishes: the turkey, the stuffing, broccoli, rice, cheese casserole, green beans, and I just it's such a happy holiday, and like when family comes over, and it's the one time that we're eating food that's not Vietnamese as well. But I wanted it to just to have it reflected of like, how my household is, on this very American holiday. And we just never get to see it from a Vietnamese American perspective. And also there's something about, giving thanks to your family and in this case, the son was coming home and hopeful and thankful that his parents, accepted him. And so, yeah, I just think that it was something beautiful,
Well chosen. Yeah. Slava, how about you?
There are two main holidays in Bulgaria, and they're Christmas and Easter. And I chose Easter because of the symbolism of rebirth and hoping for a new beginning, and also spring and the eggs and the red color. It just felt appropriate. And also it's a time when it's warm enough that you can travel to another place. And it just felt right. Yeah.
It read right too. Yes, absolutely. That meaning was evident in the watch as well. M, when you were doing your writing and directing, this premise I think is so fresh. It's of course part of the huge strength of your film. How did you come up with this particular setting to put your characters into? Just the West in America in general, and also of course where this father and son end up.
Yeah, my dad lives in rural Oregon, which is where we shot the film. And I've been going there since I was a kid to visit him, and just kind of fell in love with the landscape. You're just driving in this beautiful, like open, arid plains, which is not what we think of Oregon looking like. And I just would be on the road for hours. Like when in the summer when I'd visit him, we'd go like drive to this rodeo that was like 6 hours away. And so I've always wanted to shoot a film there, and sort of became really interested in like how the Western film like influenced American masculinity and what we think of as like normal gender norms in the United States is like this like very specifically constructed like white male conquering supremacist colonial like fantasy of the Wild West. So that was just like, oh, I want to talk about that subject. This is where my dad lives. This is just, it made sense to make the film there. And then actually I was doing research on another film about a trans guy at a bachelorette party. And I was really stuck on the script, and I was visiting my dad, and I was like, Dad, I'm going to go to a strip club because I need to figure out what the end of my movie is. I'm like really stuck. And he was like, I'm going to go with you. And I was like, oh, like that is so awkward. And then he and I in the strip club, which is basically where they end up at the end of the movie, I was like, oh, this is the movie I want to make. And weirdly, like I'm writing the feature version of the movie now, and sort of both of the movies I was trying to make are coming together finally after like 3 years. But yeah, I was like sitting in a strip club with my dad. It wasn't the same experience at all as what happens in the movie, but it gave me the idea and sort of put a lot of pieces together for me on like how to make a movie about American masculinity.
Wow. These are so personal. That's amazing. That is amazing. So generative, that experience, I'm sure. And yeah, as we're coming down to time here, Justice, I want to hear from you. Your film has such a distinct visual style. You, of course, use the word fairy tale, as would I. How did you dream this up, and how did you bring it to fruition on screen? It's so lush and so unique. Where did it come from, and how did you make it happen?
Thank you. It's a really weird reference, and this really just does show the like little gay boy in me. But there's like this part in Lady Gaga's Marry the Night where she talks about like it's the whole like Marry the Night is kind of this like fairy tale of like this trauma that happened to her. And we've learned more about what actually happened now with like her sexual assault. And the way she like reconstructs everything to make it this like very like over the top experience was really exciting to me, because she was able to like collage her trauma and collage her experiences to match with where she was now. And I think I wanted to create this like fairy tale collage, because within collage, you're able to cut out all the bad parts and keep what you want and put all of that together. And so I think that's where a lot of the aesthetic came from, because it was very like particular like memories of mine and other people who had been Black boys and other Black children, and like piecing them together so that you can really see the beauty in all of that. And I think also the fairy tale aspect is important too, because like there aren't many fairy tales where you see like Black people. Like the one that I grew up on was I grew up watching like Brandy Cinderella or like The Wiz. And like that's where my brain can really only go. And I really do think it's important for like children and adults to have those like simple moments of joy that might have a lesson within it to kind of return to, and hopefully like kind of like we were saying earlier, like remember like the good simple parts of life.
So well said. And wow, what a group of films here. I am sure the audience who has just joined us agrees and is thankful to hear from each of you a little bit more deeply about the process. through which these films came to be. Thank you again for joining us today, and thank you for presenting your films at Damn These Heels. We couldn't be more proud. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.